Hello everyone, this is Nizam Mahmood. Welcome to my class. Today we are going to discuss about enterprise application or overview of an enterprise application. Well, as we everybody know, in this digital world, regardless of the nature of the organization or enterprise organization, um, almost everybody conducting their business using the application or the software. So whenever we say application, mostly it comes to our mind. It might be a web application or it might be a mobile application, because this is the way today's digital world they provide their service to the end user. So if I am open a bank account, I can easily conduct my day-to-day activities using my mobile phone or using my computer. So, and if you look at your day-to-day activities, you will see you are actually surrounded by those applications. Your bank account, if you are a student, you have your university account, any kind of government of service, you have account everywhere. So that those type of activities you are conducting using your mobile phone or your computer. So in a general sense, to use a web application, we need a browser like a computer and open a browser, Google Chrome, Firefox, etc. We type the URL of that application and www.facebook.com as an example. Then we get the homepage of Facebook. Then it asking us user ID and password. We type the information and then it is authenticated. We are inside the Facebook page. Same thing, bank account, same almost every other application, almost the same nature. In terms of the mobile, the only difference is that we do not need to open a browser. Almost every application now it is offering mobile app. So we download that mobile app. Same thing, Facebook. I just download a Facebook app on my mobile phone. I just click that app. It is first time it will ask me for authentication. And once I authenticate it, every time I'm just click that icon and I'm inside of Facebook. So that's the nature of an enterprise application. So now let's dig into the little bit more details and maybe in an architectural point of view. So in that perspective, I have a slide for you. So let's say this is the slide. So enterprise system is most of the organization or like a corporation or industry, they have their business architecture almost like this, right? They have a finance department, manufacturing department, sales department, service department, their customer, and their IT department, like enterprise IT department. And they have a supply. So the software they develop, they need to communicate each other, this department. The customer might be communicate with their maybe sales department, service department, finance department, etc. So this is how to make this communication between this different section or different organization. They might use one application or maybe multiple application, right? So this is more or less the same scenario, almost every business. So now the silos of IT, as you can see, like information technology. So IT, the people who work inside the IT umbrella, mostly they are more technical, more skilled, and they are subject matter expert in terms of the providing the service for that organization for IT related service, right? So here you can see the different type of role here, the business stakeholder, architect, security architect, project manager, DBA, developer, tester, and actually more. There are so many other department or groups also available within the IT section. And how they communicate, a developer or programmer, security architect, solution or infrastructure architect, end user, project manager, tester, definitely they have communication each other. So the software that we are talking about, and that enterprise application. Definitely that software is built by a developer, but developer definitely get the guidance from the architect folks, like a solution and infrastructure architect, security architect, right? Those provide their solution, and based on that, developer write the code, tester do the testing, project manager run the project management, and the end user normally is the product owner. So that software, they say, yes, this is my requirement, it meets my requirements, and based on that, they now provide the service to the end customer. That's the way how an enterprise application works. So now, if you do the architecture of that enterprise application, so you see that in the first picture, a client, that means, let's say I'm Bob, I want to log into my Facebook account. So I open a browser, type www.facebook.com. That information comes to the internet, then it hits the web server of that Facebook. Like every application has three type of server. The first one we call front end, like a web server, where it hosts the web application or web component of that application. Then the middleware or tier 2, here you can say the logic of the application is running. So developer develop the logic using some object-oriented programming language such as Java or maybe C#, etc. So the logic server is called application server, or sometimes we call middleware server. And then the backend server. Every application must have a backend server, and backend server means a database. Like a database can be a SQL server, database can be Oracle. So that means in this architecture, easily you can see that without a database, there is no existence of an enterprise application. Enterprise application must have a database. So as a high level, as you can see here, that I submit the request, then it hit the web server, web server responded back to the client. And then if there is a logic is required, the web server communicate with the application server, and web server communicate with the backend server. Look at the bottom request, a bottom diagram here. So client submit a HTTP request. So when you open the browser, you can see www.facebook.com. Right. So when you just in our general practice, what we do, we just open a browser and we just type some kind of IP address, like a URL, right? So we say, okay, http://www.abc.com, or we can type https://www.abc.com. So now it is because of the security has been secured. So that means from this client to this server, the communication, when I submit the HTTP request, the communication is encrypted. So when the server responds back to me, all communication is encrypted. So there is no middleman here can see my data, because that is the benefit of the using HTTPS. And nowadays, almost all application, you will see this is no more HTTP, it is actually HTTPS. That means it is secure. And then as I mentioned earlier, that this web server, if it is needed to run some logic, it now communicate with the application server, or it can also talk to the database server directly. An application server also need to talk to the database server. So that's the way how an enterprise application works. So let's say if we do a little bit dig into this more, let me draw a diagram for you. So maybe I can take a white page here. Okay. So let's say in the previous diagram, as you can see that an application has at least 3 layers. So let's say this is www, we call it is a front end. Then we have a middleware, right? I just said middleware, where is the application is running. And then this is the backend, right? My database. So database means backend, right? And this, so in some time we call it is tier 1. It is called tier 2. and it is 3 at 3. So if anybody asks from going forward now, if you understand what is an enterprise application, well, we can say an enterprise application consists at least 3 tiers. The front end contain the web application component of that application. Then middleware contain the logic component of the application, and the back end contain the database. Any kind of database must be here. So let's say this is the internet, and now this is Bob. Bob, let's say it is an end user. Bob submit a request to communicate with that server through the internet. So when you type, let's say this application called abc.com. So remember one technical part here, that computer A and computer B communicate each other always by something called IP address. IP address is a 4-digit number. Let's say 10.10.10.10, something like that, the 4-digit number. IP means Internet Protocol. Computer will never talk to another computer by name. Name is just for us, just human for understanding, so that we can easily memorize facebook.com, cnn.com. But computer actually communicate each other by IP address. So now question is that in my browser, I do not type IP address mostly, right? I type the URL like facebook.com. So what happened actually here? There is another service called DNS, very important component or service that plays a big role in this communication. Domain name service. Basically, it is a translator, and it translates computer name into IP address, or IP address to computer name. So DNS is a service, the network service, very core important service that provide computer name into IP address translations, or IP address to computer name translation. So when I type www.facebook.com or abc.com, it actually first asks my local DNS server, hey DNS, what is the IP address of this abc.com? DNS check his database, say, yes, I have that IP address. DNS provide my browser that IP address. So this is step one. So before I come to internet, I get the IP address of that particular application URL. So now my browser knows the IP address of abc.com. Now it comes to the internet, right? When it comes to the internet, he say, hey, I'm looking for this particular IP address. And when he found it, it comes to this particular server and say, hey, now I'm going to submit you a request, my HTTP request. Can you respond back? And it say, yes, I am okay to respond to you back. And normally it give you the content of that particular application. Mostly it is a home page, right? It is a so you get that particular content, and that content might contain, say, maybe picture, videos, audios, whatever the nature of that application. We can see, and the next step. Let's say now I want to log in. Let's say assume abc.com is a banking application. So now it's okay. I want to log in to authenticate. So then it asks user ID password. I type the user ID password. When I type the user ID password, normally this has to be this information, this front-end server communicate with the logic server, like a middleware server. And middleware server run a query against of the database and asking the database, hey, can you please check this user ID password is valid or not? And based on that logic database running, the query, yes, it is an authenticated user. And if it is authenticated user, it gives the that information to the front end. Front end now allow the browser, yes, you are authenticated, you are now allowed to log in inside. So that's the basically an enterprise application works. So regardless of the nature of the application, it can be banking application, it can be Amazon web, like you guys buy the different product from Amazon website. More or less every organization enterprise application architecture is similar like this. If you want to know a little bit, let's say more detail, like a network point of view, it will be like this. Let me make another white page. So now let's say, okay, now we want to actually every organization, how they maintain the security and for that particular application. So again, it is a general, right? The diagram that I'm going to draw, it is applicable almost every organization, regardless of the nature of their business. So what happening here? Every organization must have something called firewall. They must have something called firewall. And behind this firewall, they have a zone. They segmented their network into a different zones. So first zone we call DMZ. DMZ actually stands for demilitarized zone. So this is the zone they keep their web server, their front end, there maybe they have an FTP server, they might have their VPN server. So all type of front end, if they have 100 application, that all their 100 application front end sitting down in the DMZ zone. And in earlier diagram that I showed is a middleware and application, right? So then this DMZ is kind of open to everybody in the world. So let's say this is internet, and this internet, people coming through internet, people hit this firewall first. So the firewall team in that organization, they open the rule that anybody in this world can hit my web server, because I open, let's say HTTP port, this is 80, and HTTPS port 443. So you can say that I open two doors for everybody, so anybody. And because I open the store, I definitely want everybody can come to my store, right? Because I'm providing my business or my service. So everybody can come to here, and then it submit a HTTP request, and you say, yeah, I'm responding back to you. So then that information come to the end user, right? So end user get that information. Now the middleware part or the database part is sitting down another zone. And this zone we call restricted zone. Restricted zone. So in this restricted zone, normally, let's say this is application server, this is the database server is sitting down in the restricted. But between the DMZ and restricted zone, most of the scenarios, they have another firewall. So this firewall is very restricted. Not everybody can talk to this firewall. So this, let's say now, this is my abc.com, this front end, right? This front end now, the firewall team, this, okay, this definitely has an IP address, right? So whatever this IP address, let's say IP address is X IP address. Now firewall team says, okay, the source equal to X, let's say destination equal to another IP address. This source can talk to this destination with the specific port number, or this X can talk to this database server with a specific port number. Only the very restricted, let's say this is my another server sitting here. This guy, this server cannot talk to this application or database because it is different server. So this firewall rule is very much restricted. And my end user, when they submit any information, let's say I want to, it is my banking application, I want to transfer $100 or whatever money. So I'm actually coming up to here. This is just a front end. I cannot go inside under any circumstances. So on behalf of me, this front end server communicate with the backend server or communicate with the application server. So you can see that in the almost every enterprise application has two firewall. One is called this, it is the external firewall, it is internal firewall, and there is a DMZ, that's front end, all the front end FTP, like a customer facing server sitting down here. And the back end and application server mostly sitting down in the restricted zone, where is the like another firewall between DMZ and firewall. You can see like let's say at your home environment, you have a front door and somebody knock your door. So this is, you just check who is that person. Let's say you know that person. You open the door, that person coming to your drawing room or your living room, right? So it's okay. They can sit down in that living room and you can talk to them. But you have a bedroom, and of course you do not want even though you know that person, not everybody is allowed to to go to your bedroom. So your bedroom is a restricted zone, and there is a door here, and this door is not open for everybody. Only very close to you, that you trust them, your family members, only they can come to inside. Almost same idea here, right? How the communication works here. So I hope now you understand that in terms of the technology, how this works. So now if you look at the other diagram that we have here, almost similar idea, as you can see here, that I have a DMZ, I have a web tier, business tier, and data tier. So web tier, front end, business tier means logic tier, like a middleware, and data tier means my application, like my database. So I submit the request, it comes to the DMZ server. If it is needed, it talk to the web tier. If like a web tier needs to be talk to the DMZ, like a business tier or the data tier. That's the way how it works. Almost same idea. And what I draw the diagram is almost same thing. As you can see, there are two firewall. One is external firewall between the customer and the DMZ. And then there is another firewall between the DMZ and the restricted zone where my database is sitting down, right? So almost this is the similar idea for almost every enterprise application. So I hope you enjoyed this session. So thank you everyone for watching my class. Thank you.